On the day my girlfriend's crush was getting married, the bride suddenly got cold feet and ran off. Ignoring my pleas, my girlfriend insisted on stepping in for her crush. "I can't leave him alone up there," she said. "He'll be laughed at by everyone. Besides, it's just a pretend wedding, no official papers." I watched my girlfriend, in a wedding dress, happily lean into her crush. She tossed the bouquet and declared they would be together forever. But then, when a childhood friend of mine proposed to me with a bouquet of red roses, my girlfriend panicked. "Wendy, will you marry me?" "I will." That "I will" echoed around the wedding hall. Applause filled the air, shattering my last hopes and dreams. Because standing up there as the bride wasn't just anyone, it was my girlfriend, Wendy. But the one holding her hand was Tom. Tom was Wendy's first love, the one she couldn't have. Back in the day, their parents didn't approve, so they split up. After she got together with me, every time Wendy got drunk, she'd be moody, whispering Tom's name in her sleep. Until yesterday, Wendy heard that Tom was having a wedding back home. She insisted we fly over, said she wanted to see him one last time, assured me that after this, we'd go back and get married, start a life together. I was thrilled, thought she was finally letting go of the past, since we've been together for 7 years. Throughout those years, I proposed countless times. She always turned me down, said it wasn't the right time. But just moments ago, sitting there at the ceremony, Wendy got a text. She ran backstage, ignoring everything. I caught a glimpse of the message, Tom's name. A bad feeling crept up inside me. After pressing her for answers, Wendy finally admitted Tom's fiancé had ditched him, ran off with someone rich. I took a deep breath, tried playing it cool. If his parents can't sort this out, what can you do? Wendy, without hesitation, replied, "Of course I'll pretend to be the bride. Good thing I brought a wedding gown." Edward quit standing there. "Go sit down before you blow it." I watched Wendy pull out a neatly folded wedding dress from her bag, styled with white roses, just how Tom liked it. Felt like getting kicked down a cliff. Crashing hard. Here we were at someone else's wedding, and Wendy brought a wedding dress, totally ready with makeup supplies. Our 7-year relationship felt like a joke. Her talk of a future together, all lies. I dared not think any further. Countless times we passed a bridal shop on our strolls. No matter how much I hinted, she would never even look, let alone try a dress on. She'd say gowns symbolized the constraints of family. Didn't want her wings clipped too early. Yet here she was, willingly wearing a wedding dress for another man, even if she was just a stand-in bride. Tom trailed behind her, handing over makeup, with Wendy joking, "Why am I so nervous at your wedding? You owe me big time." Tom placed the veil on Wendy, chuckled. "Thanks a ton. When this is over, I'll owe you." He straightened his suit, shot me a sideways glance as he passed by. Wendy hurried, ready on her feet. "Wendy, do you have to do this?" I grabbed her hand, hoping she'd glance back. Annoyed, she pulled away. "Edward, stop it. Know what's important here, all right?" She rushed to the stage, grabbing Tom's waiting hand. I don't even recall leaving that stage. Just sat, dazed, in a corner, feeling like every ounce of blood drained away, leaving just a hollow shell up there. Tom held Wendy's hand tight, basking in all the attention, while Wendy gazed at Tom with an affection so clear, no words were needed. I thought, Wendy won't truly let Tom go. Even though I've been with her longer, seen her highs and lows, stood by her through thick and thin, as long as there's Tom, no passing time would shift her heart even a bit. Tom was irreplaceable, and I was just a disposable nobody in her life. I let out a bitter laugh, final acceptance settling in. Wendy didn't know. This was my last attempt to hold on. I knew Tom aimed to bother me, even went out of his way inviting me to sit down and eat, hoping to provoke jealousy in me. Stir up drama with Wendy. Immature game, honestly, but I didn't care anymore. It's just dinner. I already chipped in for this event, consider it paying Tom to open my eyes. I wasn't going to leave hungry. Tom busied himself introducing Wendy to his relatives, going table to table toasted drinks. I kept my eyes off them both. Wendy, thinking I'd mellowed, reached out, tried taking my hand to comfort me. But I flinched, disgusted, left her reaching for air. Heaven finally hinted the mismatch. What do you mean? I just smiled calmly and said, I don't mean anything, Wendy. I just don't love you anymore. Let's break up. It ends here. Wendy's smile vanished, her face going blank. She opened her mouth, stunned. After a moment, she asked incredulously, Edward, what are you saying? Everything's almost over here. Why bring this up? Wendy wasn't ready to give up and reached out to grab me. I brushed her off coldly. Sarcastically, I said, I'm not joking. Marry Tom, isn't that what you want? You must be tired of pretending all these years. You've always loved Tom. Now you can be together. There was a flicker of guilt in Wendy's eyes, quickly hidden. She knew exactly what I was referring to. When she threw the bouquet on stage, she was all joy and happiness, saying, Tom, I love you. I want to be with you forever. Whoever catches this bouquet will be the next happiest person. From what I remember, Wendy rarely expressed love to me. A hug was the most I ever got. She said love was too heavy a word, a lifetime responsibility, once spoken. Pretending to be a bride, maybe that was Wendy's true way of expressing her feelings for Tom. Finally letting them out, Wendy shook her head, saying, Does not like that, Edward. I was just acting, just putting on a show. I waved dismissively, doesn't matter. Even if it was real, it's got nothing to do with me. Saying that, I turned to leave. But before I could take a few steps, someone grabbed my arm. Edward, where are you going? Look how beautiful Wendy looks in a wedding dress. You really gonna leave her here alone? Hearing Tom's voice made me sick. Was he pretending not to notice Wendy and I were arguing? Cracking this low joke. He was really just flaunting that my girlfriend wore a wedding dress for him. Angrily, I ordered, let go of me, before I could yank free. Tom lost his balance and fell back, crashing into the doorframe. Wendy shrieked, rushing to help Tom, asking worriedly, Tom, are you okay? Hurt anywhere? Tom winced, pained but forcing a smile, shaking his head. I'm fine, Wendy. Had too much to drink. Couldn't stand right. Edward didn't push me, don't blame him. Tom was willing to take a hit to make Wendy worry, and just like that, blame it on me. As Wendy rubbed Tom's sore back, she turned and shot me a sharp look. Edward, you've gone too far today. Tom is innocent. Be mad at me if you want. I chose to help. With that, Wendy protectively stood in front of Tom, afraid I'd hurt him again. I rolled my eyes, ready to snap back, when Tom spoke first. Sorry, Edward. Folks here love their gossip. If they knew my fiancé ran off, my parents and I couldn't show our faces. But I don't want to ruin things with you and Wendy. If you're mad, I'll clear it up. Tom looked determined, ready to dash on stage. But before he took a step, Wendy stopped him. With concern, she said softly, Tom, you'll always be my best friend. I'd never leave you. Don't go, you can't handle it. With that, she glared at me, saying, Edward, don't you know how cruel people can be? Tom can't handle the rumors. Do you want to push him over the edge? Tom was as manipulative as ever, making me look like the bad guy crashing their party. I shrugged, speaking directly. Wendy, are you deaf or blind? I didn't push him, and I'm not stopping you two from getting married. Go get your marriage license, seal the deal. Stop messing with others. Wendy blinked repeatedly, not expecting me to be so indifferent. She thought I'd argue or fight Tom, not push her away like this. She frowned, ignoring me, and said, throwing a tantrum has limits, Edward. I'll go change first, then we'll talk. Seeing Wendy's easing attitude, Tom grew visibly anxious, tugging Wendy's dress, looking pitiful. Wendy, you leaving? But never mind. Just moments ago, disgusted by me, Wendy turned patient with Tom. Is there more I can do for you? Trying to seem casual, Tom said, no, just a local custom. We're supposed to do a mock bedroom prank. But if it's tough, you can leave. I'll figure it out. Wendy, unwilling to let him endure anything, quickly reassured, it's just a prank. Leave it to me. A handle today won't let you down now. Tom hugged Wendy, giving me a smug smile. Wendy, don't know what I'd do without you. Since that's sorted, I'll set up where Edward stays tonight. Before I could respond, a cool voice cut in, no need. I'll take him home. Surprised, I turned to see it was a friend I'd known since childhood. Emily. Emily's eyes were slightly closed. She was scrutinizing Wendy with a tone that had a hint of questioning. Wendy, didn't you say you were bringing Edward to someone else's wedding? How come you're tying the knot yourself? A flash of embarrassment crossed Wendy's face. She quickly broke free from Tom's embrace and cleared her throat. Emily, if you don't know something, don't talk nonsense. You have no place meddling in my and Edward's matters. Emily let out a cold snort, calmly walking up to Wendy. Juggling two relationships. Is that something you enjoy doing? What you don't cherish, others will. Emily took a step back and directly hooked onto my arm. I understood Emily was standing up for me, afraid I might be bullied if left without support. I cleared my throat and corrected her. Emily, Wendy isn't exactly juggling. I've already broken up with her after all. There was a glint of light in Emily's eyes, barely noticeable. She directly looked at Wendy. Wendy, since you two have broken up, why don't you just make a good life with Tom? After all, I like Edward too. Wendy's face flushed with anger. She gritted her teeth and started cursing at Emily and me. You two are just shameless. Edward, how could you betray me and hang out with Emily? Tom tried to smooth things over, wearing a fake smile. Wendy, it's probably the wedding that made Edward jealous today. He brought Emily on purpose to make you worry about him. He loves you too much to fall for anyone else. Wendy calmed down a bit, shot me an understanding look. So that's it, Edward, you're too petty. Just trying to get my attention. Before she could finish, Emily interrupted, facing both of them directly. Wendy, stop flattering yourself. Clinging to Edward really lowers your worth. And you, Tom, drop that pretentious act. We're not buying it. I heard you guys planning to crash the bridal chamber outside. Fine, Edward, and I won't intrude. May you quickly have a kid and stay locked together. Emily's words were sharp and cutting. Wendy and Tom's faces went pale, unable to react. Emily had already pulled me away by then, leaving behind a whirlwind. Wendy seemed like she wanted to follow me, but Tom's voice quickly followed. Wendy, don't leave me behind. As expected, Wendy agreed with him. All right, don't worry, I got you. I walked away quickly, pretending not to hear anything. A cool breeze brushed by, and I felt freer and lighter than ever. A few messages popped up on my phone, all from Wendy. Edward, afraid of being exposed on the spot. I can only text you now. Don't be stubborn. I have some things to handle here. I'll go back tomorrow night and make it up to you properly. We'll get the marriage certificate this week. I looked at Wendy's messages and just felt done with it. Her feelings seemed so cheap. I didn't want them anymore. My phone showed she was still typing. I went right ahead and blocked her, deleting her as a contact. I calmed myself and asked Emily to drop me off at the company entrance. On the way, Emily kept comforting me, telling me not to be upset. Even after getting out of the car, she still wasn't reassured. I smiled at her and said, "Don't worry about me. I'm really fine. Thanks for standing up for me today." Emily hesitated for a moment, then suddenly looked directly at me. Edward, I meant every word I said today. I was a bit startled. I've always known Emily's feelings. Since we were young, she never hid that she liked me. But after I started dating Wendy, she tactfully stepped back, only sending me careful holiday wishes. Each Happy Dragon Boat Festival or Happy Mid-Autumn always carried a hidden I love you. Turns out, I'm not the only fool in this world. These years, she hasn't changed. Still instinctively protecting me the way she used to. I sighed and spoke. Emily, you're a great girl. Though I've broken up with Wendy, you know her persistent nature. I'm afraid. Emily shook her head. I don't care about that. Hold on a sec. She hurriedly opened the trunk, pulling out a huge bouquet of deep red roses, just as bold and brilliant as she was. Emily smiled radiantly as she walked toward me, her eyes holding a spark. Edward, I'm very clear about still liking you. It's been many years. Can't let you go. Give me a chance. Okay? They say dating starts with a bouquet. Let me pursue you, will you? At this moment, it was like fireworks exploded in my heart, the kind needing a lifetime to clean up the ashes. I admit I was a bit moved. Emily's love was honest and open. She loves me. She stands with me openly and gives me the best of everything. Clearly, I have a great person by my side, but I've foolishly mistaken Wendy for someone special. Why can't I see through it? Why did I let her down? I gently ruffled Emily's hair, saying softly, liking someone, going after someone, that's your right. You don't need anyone to give you permission. Emily's eyes sparkled, full of light. So, does that mean you're okay with me pursuing you? Emily is great, kind, sweet, and worthy of someone putting her first. The only thing is, I just ended a relationship. Wendy still thinks I'm mad at her. Before starting something new, things between us have to be clean. I want to be responsible with Emily. I didn't answer her question directly, but I didn't want her to feel bad either, so I just smiled lightly and reached for the roses in her hand. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind. No, Wendy, who is supposed to be back tomorrow, appeared in front of me looking exhausted. With red eyes, Wendy harshly stopped me. Edward, you can't say yes to her. You told me you'd only love me in this life. Wendy frowned and rushed over, trying to grab the roses. You can't take flowers from her. I'm your girlfriend. I quickly stepped back, dodging her hand. Wendy looked had so hurt, like I'd wounded her. Edward, how can you treat me like this? Are you really going to date Emily? With no expression, I coldly replied, Wendy, I think I've made it clear today. We're done. Whoever I date now is none of your business. Wendy was hurt. She stared at me and questioned, Edward, but you said you'd only marry me. You're the one who always keeps promises. How can you break your word now? Listening to her, I chuckled bitterly. Wendy, you went and married someone else. Why should I marry you? As soon as I said it, Wendy laughed without a care. I knew you were still upset about the wedding. I already told you it was just an act for Tom. If you're upset, I'll make it up to you with the biggest wedding when we marry. I frowned, unhappy that Wendy could still shamelessly laugh after what she did. You've got some nerve. Don't flatter yourself. I'm not going for a second round with you. If you want weddings that badly, go marry Tom a few more times. Wendy's face changed instantly. She pointed right at my face. Edward, I'm giving you an out. Don't push it. I made a special trip back to patch things up. Is this tiny issue really worth it? Did you bring Emily here just to annoy me? With that, she pulled out her phone and shoved it in my face, demanding, I'm telling you, I've only got so much patience. Don't push me. You've got a lot of nerve blocking me. Now unblock me. Fast. I was about to refuse when Wendy's phone rang. It was that unique ringtone she had just for Tom. Probably due to our unresolved issues, she hesitated, glancing at me, but only briefly, before answering the call. Tom must have said something because Wendy visibly panicked, quickly reassuring him, Tom, calm down, stay where you are, I'm coming to find you. Wendy hung up and was about to dash off, but after a couple of steps, she turned back. She explained hurriedly, Edward, Tom also flew over, intending to apologize to you in person. But he's unfamiliar with the roads here and got lost after leaving the airport. I'm worried about him getting into trouble, so I have to go find him. We'll talk about our things later at home. As she left, Wendy shot Emily a fierce look and warned, Emily, Edward is my boyfriend. We're getting married soon. Stay away from him. I sighed silently. It was expected. No surprise, she left me for Tom again. Tom comes first, always. But this made me see Wendy's true colors. Made me realize who genuinely cares about me. Emily looked at me, worried, then glanced at the roses in my arms. Edward, are you really getting back with Wendy? If I'm putting you in a tough spot, you don't have to take the flowers I gave you. It's okay. Emily forced a small smile, but her voice was full of vulnerability. I was scared she'd cry any moment. After all, no one is truly selfless enough to genuinely bless the one they love to be with someone else. I know Emily. She just seems carefree, but I know she always shoulders her troubles alone. I sighed, teasing her a little. So, regretting confessing already, Emily raised her head, eyes bright, and shook her hand vigorously. Absolutely not. I never regret it. I nodded lightly. Okay, wait here for me. I'll be back soon. Just need to sort some things out. In a while, I returned with boxes of my stuff from my office. Heading downstairs. Seeing me with the box, Emily seemed surprised. Edward, did you quit your job? I put my stuff in the car and replied, yeah, I did. I remembered why I joined this company in the first place. It was for Wendy. Wendy and Tom didn't come for much, but Tom's mom was a social climber. They were forced to break up. To not hurt Wendy's self-esteem, I had a falling out with my family and ended up living a hard life with her. Started from the bottom as a small office worker. Wendy didn't know much about the company. I stayed up all night with her, teaching her how to make plans and draw up spreadsheets. I even gave up opportunities for promotion and salary raise for her. Though I didn't have much money then, I worked hard, saved up, and wouldn't let Wendy face any hardship. I gave her the best I could. In the end, 7 years of genuine care were wasted on someone who didn't appreciate it. Now that we've broken up, there's no point staying at that small company. I'm thinking, maybe it's time to swallow my pride and apologize to my parents. I parked my car at the house, and Emily got out cautiously asking, got any plans now? I pulled out the keys, opened the door, and said, this house was bought with Wendy, but the title is in her name only. Since we broke up, there's no point staying here. I plan to pack up before she gets back and move out. Emily looked worried, suggesting, but if you move out now, where will you live? You can stay at my place. I've got an extra room perfect for you. While packing, I replied, okay, but I can't stay for free. I'll pay you rent. Emily laughed, jokingly saying, all right, don't worry. I'm a great landlord. I won't overcharge you. Let me help. Emily started packing, carefully folding my clothes, looking in the closet. I realized Wendy's stuff took up most of the space. There weren't many things of mine in this home. It symbolized how unbalanced our relationship was. Emily kindly prepared a guest room, got all the new essentials. Wiping the sweat from their forehead, Emily smiled. Hungry? What do you want for dinner?
Surprised, I asked.
Emily, you can cook? Emily pretended to be hurt, saying, we grew up together. How can you not know? Hearing Emily, I looked down. Ever since I started dating Wendy, I lost my social circle always revolving around her. Emily joked, you know, they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I playfully flicked Emily's forehead, laughing. Seriously, get off the internet. Emily rubbed their forehead, tied on an apron, saying, all right, no more joking. To celebrate your newfound singlehood, I'm making your favorite fish soup. These were things Wendy never did for me. After work, Wendy would just lie on the couch, complaining she's tired and making me do the chores. She never did housework, let alone cook. I prepared every meal, even consulted a nutritionist to ensure her health and a balanced diet. Watching Emily busying in the kitchen made me feel a warm sense of comfort. My wandering soul felt like it found a home. Edward, dinner's ready. What are you daydreaming about? Emily waved a hand in front of me, bringing out the dishes. I dished out the soup first, gently shaking my head. It's nothing. After dinner, I want to visit my parents. Haven't been home in ages. Emily looked thrilled. Asking, really? You finally made up your mind?
They've been asking about you.
I swallowed my soup, catching on to something. I haven't been in touch. How'd you know they've been asking? Emily sheepishly scratched their head, saying, I visited them a few times.
They asked about you.
Don't worry, I'll go with you. They'll definitely forgive you. Although Emily kept reassuring me on the way over. Standing in front of my parents' door, I was nervous, my fingers trembling, feeling the tension of returning home. In the end, Emily knocked for me. Mom's face lit up seeing Emily, welcoming warmly, oh, Emily, you didn't have to bring so much each time. In that moment, I realized Emily was a frequent visitor. Through the years, they secretly looked after my parents. Guilt and gratitude surged within me. With a choked voice, I called, Mom, I'm back. Mom's eyes reddened instantly, scolding, Edward, where have you been all these years? Emily gently nudged Mom inside, winking at me. Annie, These gifts are all from Edward. Let's go in and chat." Soon, Dad emerged from his study, now looking much older than before. Thanks to Emily acting as a glue, my parents didn't scold me too harshly. Hearing about the breakup with Wendy, both seemed relieved. Dad had said back then, "People like Wendy, he's met many in business.
We wouldn't last."
I once thought it was just his bias, never expecting him to be right. On the way home, I finally felt a sense of relief I had never experienced before. I took a deep breath and said to Emily, "Emily, why don't we try dating?" She looked at me, stunned. After a moment, her eyes started to tear up, and she nodded, saying, "Okay." Even though Emily and I made things official and moved in together, I still wanted to give her the respect she deserved. We started a new life together, and I felt happier than ever over the next few days. But then, a week later, an unexpected guest showed up at our door. That evening, Wendy came over with Tom in tow. Seeing Emily and me together, she looked annoyed and barked, "Edward, you've been messing around long enough. It's time to come home." I frowned, not pleased. Maybe Wendy thought I would never really leave her, or maybe she was just used to having me around and deceiving herself. After all, I had made things crystal clear between us. With a sigh, I said, slightly impatient, "Wendy, I'm tired of saying this. We've broken up. Plus, you have Tom now, so stop bothering me." Tom stepped forward looking a bit pitiful and said, "Edward, you got it all wrong. I just didn't want any misunderstandings between you and Wendy, so I came here myself. It's my fault. I got lost after leaving the airport." He added, "Wendy didn't abandon you on purpose." Emily, always direct, couldn't help but chuckle and sneered. "Lost? Aren't you too old to make up such lame excuses? If you were truly lost, you should have gone to the police, not Wendy. And being lost was last week's problem. Wendy, if you really cared about Edward, why didn't you come for him earlier? Tom wasn't lost overseas, was he?" Wendy stomped her foot in anger, glaring at Emily. "Emily, who do you think you are to talk about Tom like that? You know what, Wendy, she's right."
"It's my fault."
Tom chimed in, trying to act all buddy-buddy, and then held up a thermos. "Edward, don't sulk with Wendy. It's all on me. Wendy didn't come find you, because I got sick when I arrived. Went to the hospital several times. She can be harsh with words sometimes, but she's really soft-hearted. She even made chicken soup for you to bring you back home." I scowled in distaste. Tom's overly dramatic antics were just as irritating as always. Wendy, who claims she can't cook, clearly made the soup for Tom's stomach, not me. Even at this point, Tom was meddling to assert his importance in Wendy's life. Wendy stood there, arms crossed, nodding at Tom with her chin. "Tom, why do you bother explaining? Some people just don't appreciate anything." Tom smirked at me with a hint of challenge, opened the thermos, and prompted, "Edward, the soup's still hot. Why don't you have some?" He dipped a spoon and tried to feed it to me. Emily quickly pushed Tom's hand away, worriedly asking, "What are you doing?" Spilling soup all over the floor. Wendy rushed to make sure Tom was okay and glared at Emily. "Emily, are you nuts? I should be asking you that. What are you trying to do?" Emily held my hand, stepping back slightly, accusing Wendy, "You've been with Edward for 7 years. Don't you know he's allergic to green onions?" Wendy looked flustered, with green onions floating on the soup, added for Tom's taste. Wendy glanced at me, rarely apologizing. "I'm sorry, Edward. It wasn't intentional." But Emily wasn't letting Wendy off the hook. She glanced at the spilled soup and said, "Right, it wasn't intentional. There's barely any meat in this, not even a chicken leg. Probably all went into someone's belly, leaving scraps for Edward." Emily hit the nail on the head, making Wendy's face turn red and white, not daring to meet my eyes. Annoyed, Emily waved dismissively. "All right, no need for you two to hang around here any longer. Wendy, if you can't cook, don't bother bringing junk. Whatever my boyfriend wants, I can make. We don't need your soup." Wendy suddenly seemed to snap, frowning. "Wait a minute. What did you just say? Boyfriend?" Before Emily could respond, I jumped in. "Yes, Emily and I are together now." "Emily, you shameless homewrecker. You must have seduced Edward." Wendy was furious and screamed, charging forward to slap Emily. I grabbed her wrist, shoved her aside, and stood firmly in front of Emily. Wendy was even more shocked, disbelief written all over her face. "Edward, you pushed me. You actually pushed me for Emily?" She started acting like a mad woman, and I was done with being nice. "Emily is my girlfriend. Of course I'm going to protect her. Edward, you're something else. I gave you a chance. Don't regret it." Wendy huffed angrily and grabbed Tom's hand, saying, "Tom, you're my boyfriend now. Let's go get married." Tom was thrilled and pulled Wendy into a hug. "Really, Wendy? You want to be with me? I've never been able to forget you." I couldn't care less about their drama and shoved them out the door, rudely slamming it shut. "All right, are you homeless? If you want to show off your love, do it at your own place." Wendy's feelings for Tom, whether out of spite or genuine, were none of my concern anymore. I didn't dare think about it further. After patching things up with my parents, Emily often came with me to visit them. With my dad getting older, I started taking over the family business. Even though work kept me busy, I made time for weekend road trips with Emily. Emily's the kind of girlfriend who never kills the vibe. She plans, she clicks pictures, never seems to get tired. She always says that as long as she's with someone she loves, even picking up trash is fun. I tease her about her choice of words, and she sticks her tongue out, stuffing the souvenirs she bought into my pockets. 2 months later, Wendy showed up at my office, and I barely recognized her. Her clothes were tattered, she was dirty, and she didn't seem mentally stable. The moment she saw me, she dropped to her knees, clutching my legs. "Edward, please save me. I'm begging you." She seemed off, and Emily, being kind-hearted, called the police. That's when we learned that there was never any runaway bride story. All of it was a trap set by Tom, who conspired with his parents to lure Wendy in because they saw her making headway in the city. They wanted to swindle all her money and make her their servant. Wendy was used to a lavish life and couldn't cope, earning her beatings for any mistake. She lost everything, her body covered in bruises, reduced to a wreck. After escaping, Wendy explained everything to the police, and Tom and his folks got arrested. I sighed deeply, not really feeling sorry for Wendy.
She got what she deserved.
After leaving the hospital, Wendy shadowed me for a bit, trying to fix what we had. I ignored her, just handing her a wedding invitation. She stood there stunned. Soon after, Emily and I threw a grand wedding. I noticed a familiar figure at the entrance. It was Wendy. She didn't come inside, just watched from afar as I pretended not to notice. I focused on sliding the ring onto Emily's finger, my eyes only on her. At that moment, I held happiness tightly in my grip,